The Air Force has a lot of trouble with time travel. And it's not that you go back and the paradox of killing your father and because you return to another. First of all, man cannot travel back in time. That's what the little clones were for. Now, there's another race that no one has talked about, and that's the clones that created here on this planet to be sent back in time, because man, we do not know how to travel through time yet. We instantly die. And they've tried. And the Aldrich was part of the terrible experiment. And yes, it did happen. Dad says they were in the metal and such. But here's what the Air Force has trouble with. In order to travel through time, it's not like an airplane, that you get in an airplane and you go from point A to B. You must have a purpose. And it must be a benevolent purpose. Because if it's not, you come back with all types of baggage. Now, who comes back? The little clones come back. Dad says one part of their brain, there's two brains separately, not two hemispheres. One is laced with integrated circuits, it's all in here. The other one is the brain for the little thing to navigate and move around with and apply as energy. Now, you say back engineering. Boy, is it a two-sided sword. Have any of you seen the movie Star Trek V where he goes back and gets the whales and they bring it back? Okay, and Scotty's sitting there and he needs the matrix of plexiglass made up, and he's sitting there and he cracks his knuckles, you know, and he says, oh, how quaint, you have to type, you know, rather than talk to the computer, you know. And he's typing in the matrix for clear aluminum. That's what it is, transparent aluminum. And Sulu's standing there beside him and says, you know the prime directive, you're breaking it, you know. And Scotty turns to him, well, how do you know he didn't invent the damn thing anyway? You know, and that's what reverse engineering is. How do you know that we didn't make the craft and send it back anyway? Because everything today, I assure you that I know more about this than anyone on the planet, except for the military, that it's possible within not too much longer to build the craft and send it back to that time. So, how do you know that we didn't do it anyway? Now, that boggles the human mind. You say, are we caught in a time loop? And you start all this thing and that. Everything that you know about time is wrong. Everything. Time, to explain it in a nutshell to you, it's digital and it moves sideways. Everything that takes place in this universe is taking place simultaneously right at this moment. Everything. Your birth, your death. No such thing. You already know that. Now, we are such limited beings that we see ourselves as moving from birth to death. Well, we also know, and everyone in this room knows, that there is no death. You just simply are transformed your energy into another dimension or another state. And it's pretty much up to you what you want to do with it, how well you achieve. And that's why I say benevolent travel. And they did have trouble at that table with their travel. Their travel has run into trouble. And they are in trouble because they lack good pilots. Play on that word for a minute. Good pilots. Okay, more questions. I got to get off the subject. Did that answer anything or help?
That got the ball rolling in a great way.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
yes.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you know what? We better go to the speakers.
Yeah, we need to come to the mics. There's two mics set up here.
Then that way it takes it in order, and I don't choose.
Just one more short question about time.
Okay. You know, I'm doing like that guy channeling last night. Why am I doing that? Stop that. I didn't believe in that.
As I...
Okay. I'm going to sit down. Okay, Dad? He kicked me. Yeah. Maybe I got a lot to learn, you know. Yes, you got to rearrange the camera. Yeah.
Yeah, just back to the Roswell incident. I understand from your lecture at the X conference that apparently there were craft observing the Trinity test in July of 1945, that we were testing the Trinity test, and there were 2 or 3 craft. I know there were like 4 crashes in New Mexico in 47, but that those craft are on a different timeline than we're on. And something having to do with that first Trinity blast that most of the scientists thought it would get into the atmosphere and destroy the Earth, that they were observing that craft, and something blasted them out of the sky from that. Mm-hmm. And on their timeline, it might have only been 10 or 15 seconds for them to crash to the ground, but on our timeline, from July 1945 to July 1947, mm-hmm. in our timeline, it took them 2 years to actually hit the ground. Is that the right?
Well, it's, you got the right idea, but I can tell you exactly how it happened, because my father told me. And the military knows this. The craft came through in 1947, but it also came through in 1957 in Corona. And most of the debris field was left in Roswell, and the craft was actually left in 1957. Yes, so basically what you're saying is absolutely true. And what brought it down? I don't think anyone in this room, really knows. I mentioned it maybe long ago at the Fort Walton Beach, but I'll tell you again, my father told me what brought it down. They had an extremely powerful radar that locked onto the Nikes and the Nike Ajax, and it was pencil beam. That's how concentrated it was. Big test tubes, computers that were data pods, Dad said, that were non-electronics, and it was very crude stuff, so it was very high-powered. And when he would aim this thing at an RCAT, which is the drone that they fired their missiles at, it would actually bring it down. So my dad, you hear that a lightning storm was taking place that night that the ship came down and all that type of hooey. But actually, they know they brought it down with their radar locking onto it. Yes.
And was there an actual craft crash in 45 too, or did it just?
No, 47 and 57.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Now think about 57. Put the pieces together. What did my dad see in the desert?
Yeah.
What did he see?
The craft.
The encounter.
Okay. Now I'm giving away I'm giving away the jelly beans now. But yes, we know my father knows just about everything. And was he kind of put into these positions and chosen into these positions and such? Yes. But this is a peace conference, and I would really like to tell you a few things about my father through his career, real quick, if I may, and then we'll go back to the questions. I just thought of this, and I think he wants this brought out. My dad began as a dirt soldier, drafted. It's in the new book, too, and I find it very interesting because I didn't know this. He had such a high IQ, 180-something in those days was pretty high. And when he scored on a test for his draftee, they said, "Come here, son, we're going to make you an officer now." So anyway, he goes over to England, and he did so well. We had no intelligence program at that time, so they put him into the British. What is that, Paula? Help me out. M14. Yeah, he went to Cambridge University and learned how the British and they would say, "How green our ally." Dad would always say that, So anyway, he came back, went to Fort Riley, Kansas, where he saw the EB bodies in the casket. Now, Dad was not in Roswell. That's what I want you all to know. He was not a part of Roswell and retrieving it and such like that. First ones he saw was in Fort Riley in the little boxes, and he headed up and began and founded our intelligence schools there, because we had none even after the war. So then he went to Korea and he became intelligence officer for MacArthur. And since he had the photographic memory, he interrogated 2,000 prisoners himself. MacArthur sent him up and put him on the Panmunjom peace talks. And Dad says they were characters. He says every time he would come in raise his flag, he would make a flag an inch taller than theirs. The next day they'd come in if theirs an inch taller and the flags were growing on the table, And Dad said one time he walked in and sat at the table, and he says they knew he had them, and they were ready to sign the peace treaty. And because the prisoners that he would interrogate, he would take everything as being true. and then disprove it rather than try to make a decision that it wasn't true. And they knew how to defeat themselves like most enemy did. Make a long story short, they dropped a torpedo with a time delay. They couldn't blow up the earth dams that held the rice back because they were a quarter mile wide and such. And